In '05, you guys went back to Match Grip. What's the story of that?
The story with that was I thought it would be cool. Um,
Just some wanted to be different.
Partly that, but actually mostly I was getting tired of dealing with left hand problems. And I, we had just won. We were sort of sitting on top of the world, drumline wise, or at least that's kind of the way it felt. Um, and I was like, I remember we had just done the bonus performance at the Rose Bowl, right? Like everything ended up down there in the bonus round, like the extra week they tacked onto that year. You guys
Yeah,
remember
I
that?
remember. I was there at
Yeah,
the Rose Bowl for that. Yeah.
yeah. So it was there, and I remember talking with Glenn. I'm like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna switch him to match next year, and it's like this is gonna be great. Like because I had dealt with this 1 year prior in '94, but it wasn't my decision. And in fact, I wasn't really that on board with it back then, but that was the gig, and it was sort of a diktat that came down from on high, so I had to do it. But it made a lot of sense to me in at that point in time because I really didn't. I was looking for what's next. Like what are we going to do? I know. Let's have a whole different sound. Let's just turn this thing on its head. Let's play matched and just kind of show everybody how cool that can be. And that's about the level of thought that went into it. I wasn't thinking about, you know, logistically how that would work, with harnesses and so forth. I wasn't thinking about ramifications or blowback from the community. Um, it was sort of a kind of an innocent bit of uh, ignorance about what I was actually stepping into with that. That year just about killed me. Yeah, it was really tough. I mean, luckily we had a great group of drummers, and as far as I know, uh, everybody was embracing it. I think the key players, the guys that were carried over, Freddie and Walter from the year before, and a few other cats, in the tenor line, and like there was, they were totally into it. Um, and I think most of the new cats, although they had a hard, everybody had a lot of work cut out for them, were at least behind the idea and thought and trusted in us to steer them right. And yeah, it was a very strange time because that year blew up on multiple levels. That was just one of them. So it really just knocked the wind out of me. And, I think that I wasn't prepared for the amount of piss and vinegar that we got, the vitriol, and, just some of the things people were saying were just like, okay, I, yeah, it's a young group in a lot of respects. Sure, we got stuff to clean up. My first time writing the battery book, wrote too many rim shots, which incidentally, switching to match gives you the opportunity to play a nice rim shot on either hand. So I was having a lot of fun doing that. And like, so we had, basically sextuplet shots in the drum solo, and it was like, that's something you can do with the match grip. And it felt like the next evolution in terms of the flow and some of that stuff that we were going after. And so, I wanted the ergonomics to be just what it was with the idea of the tilt, but instead of tilting to the side to cater to the conventional grip, we're going to tilt it a little down. So when it's time to wind up, get ready. I wanted power, and I wanted a double stroke roll that would make people standing up just kind of vibrate around on the ground. Like one of those old football games where you turn on the electricity and the little players kind of vibrate around the board. So those were some of the things. I just thought we could do some, I thought we could do some great music with it. I was just really excited about the possibilities that would open up. And I was aware in a sort of behind the scenes sense that, okay, there's going to be some people that don't like this, and that old match versus traditional grip thing has been going on forever, obviously, and the only argument that I've heard that makes any sense to me on why conventional grip is better is that is the argument I like it that way better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scott, very often will say something like that at clinics. It's just like, because I like it and it's fun. So I'm going to do it.
And that's a fair reason. And I think you can make I think there's reasoned arguments that you can make about, it makes it very easy to play with a light touch since the bulk of your hand is underneath the stick. There's a little bit of right-left brain duality and conversation that maybe you can get into as a drum set player. But in the context of marching, if the topic is like getting a matched sound, the reasoned approach says, well, maybe hold the sticks the same way. And so, I like both grips. I always have. I've spent a lot of my time playing the traditional grip and trying to teach myself how it works. And I think, if I hadn't quit after that year, I couldn't go on. I was heartbroken. And there was just a cavalcade of reasons why that year was just really tough on everybody. But if I had gone on, I definitely would not have gone back to traditional grip. Like we would have stayed the course, and I can almost guarantee you that, within a couple of years, some other groups would have found the courage to make that leap and check it out. And that would have been good, because then you would have had some variety. You would, I know it's hard to learn and get very good at one grip versus the other, but I don't think it's impossible. And I think, anything we can do to separate and create, unique voices in the activity is good. Sometimes it feels a little bit homogenous, but, it's like, those are the kinds of things that we can do to separate it out and create some different sounds and some different approaches and styles.
And I think even though, the reaction to you trying things like that has been hit and miss, sometimes with success, sometimes like you just mentioned, with backlash.
I swing big.
And so like, that's the thing is if people want to look to, like a model for how to do what you do. So if there's young kids out there, or even older instructors that are going, I want to have the same impact that Murray has had on this activity. Well, we've spent a couple hours just talking about how you try stuff, with
the new match grip.
Yeah, there you go.
For those listening audio, you had the double traditional grip going.
As long as it's matched, as long as both hands match.
Right,
you look at most of the drum lines in Texas, most of them are playing matched, and they sound amazing. Probably because a lot of those students also play other instruments, and it's a much more organic transition. But in general, I'm like you, am a fan of not being homogenous and not being restricted and limited in terms of what we're trying, because we're afraid of either not being able to figure out, or we're afraid of the reaction to it, because otherwise what we're going to be able to do creatively is going to be limited. What we're going to be able to discover, more importantly, is going to be limited.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you need discovery. You need some explorers out there trying some different things. And for me, I found the activity to be sometimes a little boxed in that regard, because you have a group that tries something new and is very successful at it. And I'm sure, I don't know of any groups that have had more examples of this than the Blue Devils. They've just pioneered so many different types of things. But then everybody hops on board because, hey, that's working, that's competitively viable. We got to add some of this in so we can be competitive. And it kind of depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to be competitive, or are you trying to do something else? and to have an open, honest conversation with yourself about that, if you're in a position to make those kinds of decisions, might be helpful. I know for me, being competitive was never what I was trying to do. I don't care really about it. It's not what I do the activity for. And I'm sorry, all the students that, march in those programs, if that surprises them, probably wouldn't. But, I was just interested in, how can we solve these drumming problems and make the sounds that we make sound full and groovy? How can I make the floor shake with a double stroke roll? How can how can we do these cool things and just, create these grooves and compositions and shows that are really musical and that you just like to listen to in headphones, like without watching. Like that was kind of, I'm not a very visual person. So the idea of switching to match, it had nothing to do with visual. It's like, a lot of that backlash was like, oh, it just looks so awful, or the drums are so low. And people were short circuiting, like they're just like going tilt because they're just seeing something so different. It's like, well, groups used to play matched all the time, back in the 70s and stuff. Switching back to traditional was a big deal for some groups. Like 81, I was talking about earlier, that was a match line. And they also had 6 tufflet shots at the end of the show.
I was going to say, speaking of creativity, have you ever worked with any the winter lines, the independent world lines, or do you have any desire to ever dip your toes back into the winter drumline scene, where you could be more creative?
Yeah, although to be honest, like the idea of that is so intimidating because I feel like I just wouldn't know the first thing about, when I see the shows people come up with, it's like, who thought of that? Like, it's really amazing. It's just a completely different art form altogether. I suppose, yeah, I would. I don't know that I could ever get heavily involved again just because of everything else going on in my life. And I've just, slowed down, and I'm sort of that middle-aged guy who works a job and plays around town at night kind of guy. Well, at least I used to. We'll see if that ever comes back. But yeah, I've dabbled a little bit. Probably most recently with the Vanguard Cadets did a winter group for a bunch of years in the the late aughts, early 2010s, and I wrote a couple of those with Nate Borg and company, and
okay, yeah.
Casey Brohard was instructing, David Flores was instructing. So there was definitely some homies there, and I was doing some writing for them and coming in to work. But I was very much like, just bring him in when it's, time to kind of finesse stuff, or just give him a chance to clean his music or whatever. It wasn't like, I was never a designer, and nor should I be, to be totally honest. I just wouldn't know the first thing about it. But I have a mad respect for it. It's just, to me, it doesn't feel like the activity that I am from at all. It feels like a completely new activity because of all the other stuff that is involved with it.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way after I basically took all of the 2000s off. The last group I had taught was 99. The next group I had taught was 2012. But, the one thing I will say to you, and if you ever decide to jump back in the ring in that respect, is what got me through was bringing what I always brought. And the context, and as far as, the information and the particulars, you'll get caught up to speed. It may take a couple seasons, but I think if you have the capacity, the activity would be well served to have you continuing to say whatever else it is you have to say in it, if that makes sense.
And I always thought like the winter drumline scene would be perfect for you, because I've always found your stuff to be very creative, and if you don't have to worry about horns or anything, you could just be creative percussively. I don't know if that makes sense.
It totally does. I mean, I think I might just be kind of stuck in my own little box about it to a certain degree. I've had this conversation with Glenn a few times, and he's usually just like, dude, shut up. Just, just, it's fine. Just get in there if you can. so I really appreciate what you guys said. And I certainly would give anything like serious consideration. I think I've become convinced that I just don't have the time these days for that kind of stuff, because it's hard for me to just, like, every time, like if somebody asks me to write a book, I mean, I am going to sweat and pore over every single note. It's going to take me forever to write that thing, because I just, it's just the way I'm built. I want it to be just a certain way, and, trying to chase that sound in my head and yada, yada. So I know that it's hard for me to put forth, less than like total commitment to stuff. So I think it's just, it's just kind of sits in a place of like, that seems really hard in my head, but your words make sense. So it does make sense what you're saying.
If you don't get the opportunity to, get really personally involved with another group, and so everything that you've done in terms of your body of work is basically what it's going to be. Are you satisfied? Are you good with everything that you've, I don't want to say accomplished, but everything you've created during your time in the activity?
No. Part of me kind of weeps for the fact that I didn't get more opportunities to just write at the DCI level. I in another universe, I would have gone on and continued to do that and ironed out the kinks and figured out how to play the game decently, and just not be completely selfish or self-absorbed while doing so. And I think there would be maybe some cool shows and some cool books. So what you're saying about the winter stuff makes a lot of sense. It's hard for me to think I'll be anything other than like a drum corps, like brass and drums kind of guy. Because I like brass, and I like percussion in the role of accompaniment too. I think I'm stronger at accompanying in some ways than, just creating something new. Because the thing that I like about being a drummer in a band, and I think I heard Buddy Rich say this at one point too, but I think it's similar to being an arranger as percussionists. We get to say what we think is cool about this music. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like, if a part of the music strikes you in a certain way, you get to tell everybody about it. You get to share that moment and how cool that is with everybody through the way that you write to it and the way that you create a brand new thing that is now stuck to that piece of music percussively. And hopefully, if it works, other people feel that too. And I think that's a really cool joy. And although I didn't get to do it a lot, I definitely loved doing it during the time that I did it. It's just like being able to say how you feel about the music through your arrangements and stuff.
I really like that.
Yeah. One last question from me. Sometime down the line, are they going to go to the Tapspace corporate office, open up the vault, and find just folders and folders of unpublished exercises, unpublished, like Prince? Yeah,
Prince.
Are you? Is it going to be like Prince?
The vault.
Yeah. The best thing what you just said was Tapspace corporate office. If you knew where we operated out of, this would be funny. But there's basically what you'd have to do is just break into my computer and go to the folder called Murray's Music Files. And in there, you would find every show that I've written, at least since the digital era, and every exercise and every little germ of an idea. I also have a file folder full of some of my original manuscripts from Martian and
wow.
And the Cadence. Well, we called it Cadence. Somebody else named it Electric Wheelchair. I don't know who it was. There's a lot of that old stuff. That Rhythms from Rose thing that I was talking about, the transcription of the Dudu and Dia stuff. That is, this giant manuscript in there. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that probably hasn't been produced. I do have some books that I'm working on that will probably take me a couple years to fully realize. They're kind of, I think they're more like, maybe technique based, less like strictly about battery, but more just about general ideas for technique and some creative exercises and things like that I'll be looking forward to sharing with people. So I definitely got some more to say there. But yeah, I think to kind of go back to the earlier question, it's like I am a little bit sad on a level. I mean, I'm not crying myself to sleep or anything, like the sort of the emotional charge that I get from some of the less happy times of the drum corps days. That's all faded, but in a vague sense, it's like, man, it would be nice to just have a few more books out there, because I think there would be some cool stuff. I think people would dig it, but I just don't see it happening at this point.
Well, hopefully one day it does. And hopefully, too, one day you bust out those manuscripts and mat them up and frame them behind like ultraviolet glass and donate them to the Smithsonian or something. or hey, seriously, if you were to auction off like Martian Mambo or Electric Wheelchair, there's somebody geeky enough like me that would probably bid on that to
want like a frame.
Yeah, I'd frame it and put it in my man cave.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll that's a good thing to keep in mind. Like if times get really tough and I'm like, it's like between, living in a box and, having another week's worth of mac and cheese. Like, yeah.
Hey, you gotta pay for that Kraft mac and cheese somehow.
It's time to sell off the old stuff.
Yeah, you would frame that, huh? You're geeky like me. You would do that too.
Yeah, but before I aged out, Scott gave me sort of his canon of like his original solo and all of that stuff. And when I was a Blue Devil, like I collected a bunch of music that we sort of traded with each other during that time. And I was really sad a couple years ago. I had it in my car because I had taken it to a rehearsal to share with somebody or something, and somebody had stolen it out of my car. And I'm like, that stuff.
Probably had no idea what they were taking.
Oh, I mean, it was probably some homeless person who scattered it all over the freeway.
The conspiracy theorist in me thinks it's somebody who knew exactly what it was, and now it's framed up and hung in some drumline museum somewhere. Yeah.
I got my core ring stolen from '89. That's stolen right off my wall. Man. Yeah, we had a party of Vanguard people, and yeah, somebody.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
I mean, luckily for me, I don't have a lot of sentimental value in that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like crushing, but it was just like, man, that's weak.
Yeah.
And it was obviously somebody that wanted the ring, because it wasn't. Yeah.
Do you still have the mask?
I don't know that I have the mask. I probably burned it. I hated that thing so much.
Burn them with the Timp Toms and the scoops.
Yeah, the scoops are like, they're like the what's the material that film is made out of, like at the end of Inglourious Bastards, where they it's like totally. I used one of the drums as a little box.
Stove, yeah.
I have this Tupperware container with all my old Vanguard stuff, and I don't even know if I could rattle off what's in there, but I think my fiddler hat, my Aussie. I do still have my core jacket. My core jacket was kind of unique. It was a different design than everybody else's. The shields on the back, the giant shield. And I have like some of that kind of stuff. I don't know if I have that mask though.
The Gambo cookie mallets?
I don't think I have any of those implements. Oh. Yeah. I'm weird that way. So many other people have, they can remember the smallest details of all the years. And they have like the signed head from every year. Like Andy's kind of one of those guys, he's very much a collector of that kind of stuff. And he's got like original mallets and stuff. I'm the opposite. Like, I don't even care. Like the next day it's like, oh, you want these? Sure. Whatever. Didn't take them. I'm weird that way. I don't know why.
Well, George, you have anything else?
No, Murray, I just really want to, I said it earlier, but I really want to thank you for having such an open conversation with us because, a lot of people have been impacted by what you've created, and sort of how you've expanded the idea of what marching percussion is capable of. And it's nice to be able to hear a lot of the stories and just to get some of the insight into how all of that came to be. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thank you both. I mean, this has been like, quite a trip down memory lane. And, if what I did inspired people, I just, I would just say to them, just go forth and do likewise, pay that stuff forward, make sure it comes from you, even if it's, somebody else's idea, just like put your spin on it and put it out there and, add something positive to the world and to the art form.
Well, we appreciate your time, and the fanboy in me kind of doesn't want to go, but I know we've been here quite a while, and
This
Oh
is
my
like
gosh,
the end.
yes,
This
we
is like
have.
the end. This is like the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. where
Yeah,
the movie
yeah,
just
yeah.
wouldn't end.
With special features.
With
Yeah.
special
and
features.
in my head, every time before every episode, I said, "Okay, we're not going to go as long this time, but we have to." I mean, there's so much to cover, and we appreciate your time.
Well, I'm very grateful to both of you guys. It's been great getting to know you a little bit, and hopefully we can hang together at some show or after some show in the not
I
too
will-
distant future.
I
Yeah,
would love that.
that would be great.
That would be awesome. And to everybody listening out there, thanks for hanging in there with us, and we hope you enjoy these episodes as much as we enjoy making them for you. And as always, we appreciate you, and we appreciate our guests. And like I said at the beginning, feel free to leave us some comments, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks, Murray, and we will talk to everybody later.
Thank you both very much.